Well, I'd like to welcome Linux Foundation and Sheryl Chamberlain. Thank you for joining us, and Danielle Barbosa. And could you explain to us your position at Linux and what that role entails? Sheryl.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate the invitation. So I work at the Linux Foundation as the Chief of Staff, which is really a combination of COO, Chief Operating Officer, but Chief of Staff also because I'm engaged a lot with the people that work here and driving the engagement across the organization. But from an operational perspective, I'm driving across all of the 50 projects that the Linux Foundation is managing in technology. And I wanted to also introduce Daniela because she is one of the leaders focused on the project that you're most interested today, which is Hyperledger.
Hi, I'm Daniela Barbosa. I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Alliances in Hyperledger, which is part of the Linux Foundation. Relatively new to the organization, but very happy with the potential of the members and the type of community that we've been building out. I'm responsible for the entire, let's say, life cycle of the Hyperledger project members. So as you come on, either as an individual contributor or as a company contributing to the Hyperledger project, myself, along with my team, will be supporting the members across the world.
Beautiful. Well, I'm honored. I feel like we're starting at the top.
You always start at the top, but you're delivering the message to everyone around the world. That's you, Michael.
Thank you, Sheryl. So let's just start off super basic. For people that know nothing at all about blockchain, what is it? What is blockchain?
Let's start simple. It's really, if you think about it, the ability to manage information across a chain and ensure that the information that's moving from place to place, from person to person or business to business, that chain is connected and there's no change in it. And that's what creates this very secure environment. So if you think about a chain, if you broke it or there was some change to it, then you couldn't really believe that it was the same that it was from where it came before. So that's what creates the secure environment. Daniela, you want to share a little bit about your point of view?
Sure. Yeah, I always describe a blockchain as a distributed ledger that essentially is a chain of blocks, as Sheryl explained, and it is using cryptography to make it secure, which means that every single block has a specific hash identity. So you know when it's changed, it has a type stamp, so it can always be tracked back. It is a core to the blockchain is making sure that you can view when the chain was added to the blockchain, and you can rely on that. It's a reliable piece of information or metadata associated with that change.
Integrity, that's really what we're talking about, integrity of information in the blockchain.
So it sounds like valid, verified information that can't change, and you can trust and depend that that information is actually accurate.
That's right. And no changes have happened, no hackers have gotten in the middle of it to change it because of that ability that's managing it.
Before I ask about the hackers, because I'm actually interested in that, let's just talk about some of the simple fundamental building blocks. What is a block and what is in it?
So that's a great question. Do you want to describe a block for us?
Sure.
It's not a children's toy, is it?
No, it's not.
I didn't think of that, but you're right.
As I mentioned, it is a block of information that has, let's say, metadata. We all know what metadata is associated with it. So it has what actually changed, which parties participated in that change, and it has a date stamp, a time stamp, essentially down to the millisecond of where that block was added to the chain.
Simple enough? Does that make sense?
Let me put it in other words and just tell me, Daniela, if I'm on the right track. Could I say that it's like a file folder with information in it that doesn't change?
That could be a simple way to describe it. So in our world of databases and how we understand data structures, exactly, right? So imagine you have a folder, you can't change the properties and the metadata associated with that file folder that you have.
So if we use that file folder analogy, so we have this data that's in the file folder, can't change, we verify that what's in there is accurate and that won't be edited. You mentioned another word. What is hash? What does that mean?
There's an actual code that is a secure, it's hash code, which means it's using cryptography to hash the code so that only mathematically can it be understood as to what that hash means, what that piece of information actually means.
So is a hash sort of, go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you think about security and RSA and tokens, that's cryptology has been around for a long time, and that's how we ensure the integrity of information. So when you're signing on and you're trying to get access to your files online, cryptology is typically what we use to protect that information.
So if I have this data in my file, it sounds, tell me if I'm correct with this analogy, that a hash is like a little fingerprint. It's sort of like the seal of wax that the king put on to say, you're not going to open up this letter, and if you do, we know you did that.
Exactly.
You were at the castle too many times, weren't you, with the king?
I really liked being at the castle, and I'd like to go again.
All right, we'll invite you.
So now we have our block. That's our file of data. The hash is the seal on the file that says you cannot change this, and here's the fingerprint identifier telling us exactly what's in there. And what's the chain part? Where does that come in?
Well, if you think about the chain is what's connecting information from one place to another. Let's give a good example. Let's say that you are a farmer and you want to ensure that when you're farming, that the goods that you're providing that are sustainable, that the way that you've done the farming has been done in a very sustainable fashion. To do that, you want to know what the land was, what you used in order to do the methodology in creating the products, or let's say it's flowers that you're farming. When you deliver those flowers to the market as a consumer, I want to ensure that you use sustainable properties to deliver those flowers to me, whether it's the growing process or delivering it to market. Those different steps to make sure from when the seed gets into the ground to the point in time that I give you those flowers, those are all chains that happen in the process. That's what the chain is. It's taking those blocks of chains of the delivery process, the development process, and you're sure that when I give you those flowers, you're getting what you bought.
So it's effectively like my paper trail.
Yes, exactly. I like that.
Here's the nice fertilizer that I promised you that I was going to use, and here's when I actually did everything I was supposed to do, and here's the payroll telling you that these minimum wage people actually got the minimum wage, and here's their canceled checks, and okay, great. So you know, I'm a good guy. I'm a good farmer.
Absolutely, and that you had an electric truck when you delivered them to market.
Nice touch. Very nice touch. So let's get into some specifics. So now that we know the basics of how blockchain is going to be working, we understand that it can be used in various industries, and some of the most popular ones right now are finance and health. Could you give me a very specific micro example of how blockchain can be used in the finance industry?
Daniela?
Sure. So one of many of the financial companies that are looking at blockchain, or actually in POCs, so proofs of concepts, with using blockchain technologies as well as into production, is for payments, cross-country payment services. So being able to very easily do a transaction of payments across countries without having to go necessarily through third-party providers that verify that transaction. That will increase efficiency, so being able to make those transactions much faster for both the consumer as well as the payments firm that is collecting the money and exchanging the money, as well as just being able to actually have a recorded version of that payment processing through the different parties involved.
Can I give you another example? Because we all think about the financial industry as payments like that, but I want to think about the mortgage industry. I'm in the process of selling my house. In fact, I got a buyer over the weekend. I'm really excited. I can finally move to San Francisco from Dallas. But when you think about the transaction that I'm going to have to go through to be able to take that house and deliver it to the other person with a clear title, today you hire a title company, you pay a lot of fees. I've already paid those fees before. If we did this through blockchain, you would be able to verify all the things that have been verified over time about my property. And think about it beyond the US and North America, where we have these things in place. Think about it in other countries to ensure that land that's owned by people is being managed and they're able to maintain the integrity of that property themselves as it's delivered to others.
I like that example because it sounds like you can verify something once and you're done instead of re-verifying.
Correct.
I remember I owned a lake about an hour north of Boston, and the third owner before was like King somebody in England. There weren't that many people owning it.
King.
And we had to hire scuba divers to find markers. And sludge had covered over, silt just over the years had covered it over. And some of the markers were millstones and old trees. And I said, well, what happens if they cut the tree? Because that was one of the boundary markers. And then it was a lake that was dammed. So as the waters rose and fell, so did the amount of land that I owned. And it was incredibly expensive to hire surveyors to figure that out. We actually had to hire an airplane as well to try to find it from the air. And it was just ridiculously expensive to do the whole process. So when I sold that land, they had to do it again. And I thought,
that's
the land hasn't moved. Why can't you take all the money I already spent to figure this out? No, that was the end of that. So I can see the benefit of blockchain saving a consumer a lot of money, that you just survey that land once and you're done. There's no need to do it again.
Exactly.
I like the mortgage example. How about healthcare? How would you use blockchain in healthcare?
Oh, so I think about healthcare. Since you're in Boston, I'm going to compare it to Big Dig. Right? How do I ensure that my medical records, the records of my family, and all the way back are consistent and maintained over the years to ensure that my information can help the health of my family, but other families as they're growing over time, that information. But if we were able to open up that information about a medical health record, do I want to know who's accessed it, who has that information? If they have that information, how are they using it? Who will it benefit? So you really want to think about healthcare from the point of view of, I want to share my record, but I also want to know who I'm sharing with it and in what way it's being used. Do you have other examples?
Sure, I'll give you a great example. I was just in Nashville at a hackathon for healthcare, looking at blockchain solutions, and these amazing teams of students came up with all different types of ideas, and it was great. It was teams of developers, business, pharmaceutical students, etc. One of them that really got me interested was around vaccines. Right? How do you create a record of vaccines that can be easily transferred from place to place with each individual? We also talked about how does that help with refugee statuses, right? Many refugees, as they cross borders, have to show signs of vaccination prior to joining, to being allowed to cross the border. If we had a vaccine, and now a global registry of vaccines, that could be easily done and verified by country, by doctor, etc. And they had, they used the Hyperledger project frameworks to actually build out prototypes of this. And I think it's just, one of many things across healthcare that blockchain can really enable at the health consumer level.
Just give me an idea. I'm sure there's lots of ideas at your company.
Come to any event that you want to. We would love for you to interface.
Well, you just gave me the idea of having a personal blockchain. I mean, no one ever plans on becoming a refugee. But if it did happen, I would love to have a personal blockchain that said, hey, I did graduate from this school. I did have these vaccines. These are my kids, my history. I do own this car. I do own that property at this place. Where as I'm floating around the universe, and by the way, here's the value of my 401k, and here's the account number of Vanguard, I would love to be able to have that electronic suitcase of who I am come with me when it comes time to reclaim my identity wherever I land in whatever country.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's great.
I think it's the concept of digital wallets and being mobile, right? You have situations where you won't have time, or maybe your house has been destroyed and you cannot go back and get your records. So how do you make sure that is something that you can easily access and everyone can trust, right? It's about being able to trust that that data is secure and is also the truth of your life, of your story.
To that point, I mean, that brings to mind that anybody can be a refugee. A refugee doesn't mean that you're someone that is, someone that doesn't have dignity in some way, that's from another place going to somewhere else. When you lose your records, you actually become a refugee in some ways, and getting access to that information protects your life and the life of your family.
Oh, you're absolutely right. If I lost my phone on the subway,
It's over.
it's over. Exactly. I think that's why people cry, at the airport when they lose their laptop and phone in the bin.
That's right.
Like
Somebody else picks it up.
Exactly. Well, you're starting to paint a really clear picture that blockchain is all about if you need something that is verified and trusted, can't be manipulated, and you're going to need that over time, blockchain can go absolutely anywhere and would be needed for almost anything that needs to be verified as accurate information.
Absolutely.
That reminds me, you said something earlier, you can't hack it. Tell me about that. How can you not hack, let's say, my personal blockchain that says I have X number of dollars in my Vanguard account, or that my blood pressure is actually normal when really it's sky high and I'm trying to not get my insurance rates to go up. How do you not hack a blockchain?
Well, first of all, I hope that you're okay, because I have heard a little bit about your blood pressure when I hacked into your medical record, but they caught me. So now there's a question whether they're going to grab and take me away right now. But that's where that's where I would never do that, But when it breaks, that's how you know that the chain has been broken into, and that's where the protection comes from. I mean, I don't know how to better explain it, but that's really the point in time that you know about it.
Yeah, I would think it's more transparent when you do get hacked, or there's obviously a lot of work that's being done from a security perspective on blockchain and the different blockchain technologies that they are. Remember, there's private and public blockchains as well. So if you're in a private blockchain, which means that all parties involved are known to each participant in that blockchain, then privacy and security could be slightly different than public blockchains. So there's a lot of research. There's a lot of people doing research around security and cybersecurity, very specific to these implementations across all different verticals, whether it's supply chain or healthcare, finance, etc.
And just to add on, Michael, if you think about our member companies that are part of Hyperledger, which is the focus on blockchain, a lot of them are investing their security resources and the resources that they have in order to manage the integrity of what we're calling today as blockchain.
Okay, so let's get super specific, because some of our students ask very challenging questions, and I can take it.
Okay.
So let's say that we had a U.S. election. A new one. We're having a whole new one. But it's all online. And we're going to have candidate A and candidate B, and we know 100% that all these different people are going to be trying to hack it all over the place. So it comes out that candidate A has won by a landslide. How do we know that it hasn't been hacked? And is there evidence that we could see that someone has tried to hack it?
So one of the key things is that it's a distributed ledger, which means it's not only recorded in one database. So in many of the systems today, you record a vote and it's recorded in one database under one file. And if that file is hacked and changed, it's much harder to be able to route that back, that there has been a change to that vote, for example. In a distributed ledger, which is in the blockchain, you would have multiple copies of that and very easily be able to see if within the specific change when it was done, because the other ones would have different versions of it. And by consensus, everyone in the distributed ledger blockchain would be able to say that change was not valid, meaning that we did not record that change across the blockchain.
So that's the whole point, it seems, of this distributed ledger, that you take the same record book, copy it all over the place. One hacker went into one place and changed one record book. Now you see, well, 99 out of 100 of us agree that it was candidate A, but then you have this one ledger over here that's saying something different. You were the bad A. Is that how that works?
Good. Yeah, that's great. Simplify, but very clear.
I try to be simple because I think simply. Share with me, since you're really in a wonderful position to see all the new things that are coming out, all the new startups. Can you share with us one idea, just to give us a real clarity of how you can make money at blockchain. I understand the concept, I get the examples, but now how can I actually make more money for myself or my company using blockchain? How can that happen?
Yeah, I have a great one. I mean, it is an example, another example, but I think about it about sustainable fishing. I love the word sustainable. I work for the Linux Foundation, and that's what our core message is: sustaining in technology and innovation. But think about that. You're a farmer. I mean, you are a fisherman. You spend the time to make sure that you're fishing in a place that's defined that you can fish, because you want to make sure that we have fish around the world for everybody going forward and we're not overfishing. When I deliver that fish to market, let's say it's Whole Foods, I will get a higher price because I can prove that through this blockchain that the fish that I am bringing into market has gone through again, like the plants and the farmer, it's gone through the right process, so I get a higher price for it. That's a great example of ensuring that you're doing the right thing when I buy it in market, that I'm paying the price for something that I believe in and I feel better about it. So there's multiple aspects to that. And that's something that Intel is working with as a member company on with Hyperledger and blockchain.
So that's actually hitting one of the three value levers for consumers, that you're increasing their quality of life by letting them know I'm actually getting the kind of good fish that I want to eat, and I will pay extra for that. So that's a good example. I appreciate that one.
Okay.
And for people in general, why should they care about blockchain? Like, why should they start figuring out what it is and learning about it now? Why is that important that they understand it now in its beginning phases?
Yeah, that's great. Daniela?
Well, obviously, many of us that are involved in Hyperledger and other blockchain projects get our friends at cocktail hours and dinners always asking that question, right?
Yeah.
What is blockchain and why should I care, right? Ultimately, it's, if you think about it, in the early internet days, right? Not everybody was on the internet, and maybe the three of us or many of us, watching this would be early adopters of it, and we had the same questions. What is the internet and what value am I going to get out of it? So blockchain is going to really be a core infrastructure. So at the consumer level, they don't need to know what blockchain is. They don't need to know that what technology is running, who are the players, who are the main players. What they need to know is that they are now able to trust the systems that they're using, which is very important. So when, if you're a technologist and you're obviously building products and services, you want to get deep into what blockchain is and see how it can actually facilitate the way that you do business and provide services. But as a consumer yourself, you want to make sure that you understand that using blockchain technologies, your digital life primarily is going to improve very quickly over the next few years, and you'll be able to control it. One of the things is data control, and consumers will be able to have more control of their data and where that data flows into the different services that they use.
I can see great clear benefits to consumers in having lower costs. For example, Sheryl, I could see if we could have blockchained all the documents for your house transaction, the real estate commission would be lower because you don't have to pay all these people to do all this verifying that was done the last time the house was sold.
And I could move now. I mean, I could close the deal already. I don't have to wait 30 days, right?
It sounds like you're waiting 30 days right now because you don't have blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
Have there been any discussions, and I know this is not going to be an accurate number at all, but any thoughts or discussions around the water cooler of how this would be impacting GDP, one way or the other? I see the cost savings to the consumer, but how would this be overall affecting the economy, in your opinion?
Wait a minute, Michael. That's my question for you.
Is it?
Yes.
You have to sign up for the class.
You didn't know that, did you?
It's called Flip the Classroom for a reason. I appreciate that. But we're going to flip it back to Sheryl.
I don't know. Did you have an answer to that?
Well, there was a recent report that came out that it's something like a percentage of the GDP will be on the blockchain in, I think, over the next few years. But I think, what you have to consider is that a lot of these transactions, so things that are actually happening, will be recorded on the blockchain, and it will make more transparency when, depending on different countries and how they report their GDP, how consumers versus companies are participating in GDP. There will be a shift, I personally believe, in how GDP is recorded. I would say recorded.
Yeah. I could see the measurement becoming questionable. Yeah, how do you measure something you can't really touch? In the next 5 years, trivia question, in the next 5 years,
warning.
what profession do you see going away?
Well, I think we just talked about it. The mortgage industry is going to change significantly. You will not have people in title companies that will have a job that pays all that money to verify land. I think that's one area. I would think about it a little bit from the financial services industry, because there's so much time being spent today to verify the transactions that are happening.
So a lot of back office verification, paperwork, accounting, for example. There's lots of folks looking at accounting, right? Everything's very manual right now. How do you make that process faster and more auditable even?
Well, the CPAs are going to be a little bit concerned about that, because in fact, the CPA firms, the audit companies are looking at blockchain to help improve the performance of the work that they're doing, but they will need less people to be able to get that done going forward.
Do you think the manual signature will go away?
When's the last time that you manually signed something, Michael?
The last time I copy-pasted it, Sheryl.
I love DocuSign, right? I sign letters like personal notes and cards, but that's about, that's it.
Understood.
Probably the last time I got my mortgage. That big stack of papers I had to sign.
Right.
So for the younger students in our class who are looking to capitalize on the latest, greatest technology, blockchain, if someone wanted to do a career pivot, how specifically do you think what should they go into within blockchain? Is there anything specific that you think they should be focusing on, like a specific industry that's going to be doing blockchain faster than another? And if so, which area within that industry should they be pivoting?
First I want to say, I'll let you answer that, but I think we need to think community-minded, because what blockchain is, it's different people that care about what the outcomes are, working in a community in order to improve the value proposition, as well as developing the technology. So I think that younger people need to learn how to collaborate across different sectors of information and knowledge base. Diversity of understanding, because typically when we're going to school and we're educating, we're thinking about our job, we're really thinking about the one thing that we're able to do. But going forward, and if you think about this technology, you have to understand a lot more, and you may not be the only person that can do that. It could be your colleague like Daniela that's more technical standing here with me, that allows us to do this interview with you and your knowledge and your background. And that's a community, the beginning of a community. But Danielle, would you have other ideas?
I agree. And I think it's really about what that individual's passion's about, right? So blockchain is going to go across everything. So if you're into music and digital rights, for example, there are a lot of amazing use cases, a lot of companies and folks, individuals in that community trying to use blockchain to solve some of the digital ownership issues that are out there. The tuna example or the fishing example that Sheryl used, there's a fisherman in the Philippines who can benefit from it, and all the people along that chain to delivery of the food. So it's really about finding what you're passionate about and then applying the technology and the principles behind blockchain into what you want to do with your life.
Great, thank you. And our last question, if someone wants to just kick the tires of blockchain and watch it in action, is there a website you can go to see a blockchain doing its thing? Look at this actual ledger and take a look at a block?
Yeah, definitely. We can send you that.
Yeah, so our website obviously has a lot of information because we're community driven project. A lot of the resources, the listservs, the chats are really driven by the community members, whether they're developers or business owners or marketeers. How are they involved in the Hyperledger community? We're also working on a MOOC, which is an online course, an online course for individuals, whether they're business or developers, to come in and get the basics of blockchain and Hyperledger 101. So the basics of blockchain across a different industry with some great use cases that we've developed and will be showing, and then what the projects are and the different technologies and different frameworks that Hyperledger has that can actually be implemented to solve those real world business problems. So hyperledger.org is the website. We also have meetups that happen around the world that people can participate in. They can participate by joining any of the global meetups, and our community pages, you can find those. And if you don't have a meetup, the beauty of an open source project like Hyperledger, if you live in a city that doesn't have a meetup, you can create one, and our team will support you in providing you with materials and speakers and local speakers that will come in and speak to you about the work that they're doing in blockchain.
So Michael, you're now officially part of the community of the Linux Foundation and our Hyperledger project.
I love it. I'm a member of the club. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So we actually have about 30 seconds left. What's something I forgot to ask? What's a final message you'd like to give to the students that you feel is important?
You need to be involved, be engaged, learn more, collaborate, and participate. That's how you can get involved.
I would add to that, there's room for everyone. And I think that very often as these new technologies and people start thinking, they get scared about the technology, and I'm not a developer, I'm not an engineer, I'm not good at math. There is a place for everyone in what is happening around blockchain. And hopefully, with the Hyperledger project, we're able to enable folks to do that across any domain that they're interested in.
True diversity. That's what we're talking about.
Beautiful. Well, Daniela, Sheryl, thanks for answering all the questions, and thank you for the welcoming into your community. I'm glad to be a member, and we will probably be doing more interviews before our class starts. And I really appreciate the time you took today for me and our students, and we will continue to welcome you into our community over here.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care, Michael. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.